Welcome back to the show. We are calling this session Reformed Thinking. And if you're listening, you probably already get that ideas have consequences. Theology isn't just, for arguing about online. It actually shapes how you live, how you worship, and for our topic today, how you spend your money and your life.
That's right. And today we're tackling a subject that I think a lot of us feel like we have a handle on, but our view is, well, it's pretty two-dimensional. We're talking about missions.
And I can almost hear the listener's brain starting to switch off. Missions. It can sound like a line item in a budget meeting.
Right.
Or it's that one Sunday a year where there are flags in the sanctuary, you eat some food in the fellowship hall you can't pronounce, and you clap for a slideshow.
You've just hit on the core of the problem. It's what some people call the pay and pray model.
Pay and pray.
You write the check, you put the prayer card on the fridge, which, eventually gets buried under wedding invitations and pizza coupons, and you feel like you've done your job. You've supported missions.
But the source material we're gigging into today just completely dismantles that view. We're looking at a book called Biblical Missions, Principles, Priorities, and Practices. And we're really focused on one chapter by Mark Tatlock and Clint Burnett called It's More Than Money. And we're also pulling in some really practical insights from Tom Pennington and Rodney Andersen.
That chapter title, It's More Than Money, is really the whole thesis for our conversation today. The central tension is this. Financial giving is absolutely essential. We are not saying stop giving.
Of course not.
But in the New Testament model, writing a check isn't the end of the partnership. It's barely the beginning.
It's the entry fee, not the actual relationship.
That's a great way to put it, precisely. If your engagement with a missionary ends the moment the check clears, you haven't actually fulfilled the New Testament mandate.
Okay.
You've engaged in commerce, not koinonia. You've hired a contractor, you haven't gained a partner.
So our mission for this deep dive is to try and move the needle from that transactional view money for ministry reports to something more like a covenantal model.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about shepherding, about some of the hidden sorrows of missionary life that nobody ever puts in a newsletter, and the real nitty-gritty logistics of how a local church actually cares for its people when they're on the other side of the world.
And because this is Reformed thinking, we have to ground all of this in the centrality of the local church.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about what some big agency does.
No.
We're talking about what your church, and specifically your elders and even you in the pew, are supposed to be doing.
Right, so let's start where we should always start, the biblical text. The authors argue that a lot of our modern confusion comes from just ignoring the model Paul laid out in his letter to the Philippians.
Rodney Andersen does a really masterful job analyzing Philippians here. If you look at Philippians chapter 1, verse 5, and then you jump over to chapter 4, verses 10 to 20, you see Paul using some very, very specific language. He describes his relationship with that church, and he calls them participants in the gospel.
Participants. That's the Greek word koinonia, isn't it?
It is. And in modern church culture, we've watered that word down so much, it just means, coffee and donuts after the service. We say, oh, we had great fellowship.
Yeah, good koinonia.
But in the first century, koinonia had these commercial undertones. It meant a partnership. It meant shared risk. It meant if this ship sinks, we both lose our investment.
So when Paul says they're participants, he's not just sending a thank you note for the cash.
Not at all. He saw them as co-laborers. They were in the trenches right there with him, even though they were hundreds of miles away. And here's the part that really flips the script. In chapter 4, he talks about their financial gift. He says he rejoiced in it. But you have to listen to why he rejoiced. It wasn't just because his stomach was rumbling.
Right. He says it so clearly. I have learned to be content. He didn't need their money to be happy.
He rejoiced because, and this is a direct quote, he knew that the gift was accruing to their account. That's accounting language. It's an investment term.
Okay, that's interesting.
Paul is saying, I'm happy you gave not just because I get to eat, but because you are getting spiritual dividends from this.
That completely changes the power dynamic. In the modern West, the donor often thinks, I'm the benevolent rich person helping that poor, struggling missionary. It's a downward flow.
It is, a flow of charity. But Paul is saying, hey, you're actually helping yourselves.
Yeah.
It's this concept of spiritual reciprocity. The giver benefits spiritually just as much as the receiver benefits physically. It's a mutual exchange of grace.
So it shifts from benevolence to a shared investment.
Yes, we're both buying stock in the same kingdom enterprise.
The sources also make a big deal about the fact that the Philippians didn't just send money. They sent a person. They sent human capital.
Epaphroditus. This is a detail we just gloss over in Sunday school.
No.
They didn't just wire funds, which they couldn't do anyway. They sent one of their best men to physically carry the gift and to minister to Paul. And look at the cost. Epaphroditus almost died.
It says he was ill to the point of death, yeah.
He risked his life to complete what was lacking in their service to Paul. I mean, that is skin in the game in the most literal sense possible. And beyond that, they prayed. But it wasn't some generic God bless Paul prayer. They were tracking with his imprisonment. They knew the details of his trial. They were agonizing right there with him.
There's another nuance the authors bring up that I found really fascinating. They mention that Paul sometimes flat out refused money.
Yes, in Acts 18 and 1 Corinthians 4, Paul was a tent maker. There were times he explicitly worked with his hands and refused support from a church. And why?
To protect the gospel.
To protect the integrity of the gospel. He didn't want anyone accusing him of preaching just to get rich.
Which proves the relationship wasn't defined by the money. I mean, if the relationship was just the money, then when Paul refused the cash, the relationship should have ended.
If I stop paying you, you stop working for me. That's a transaction. But Paul refused the funds, and the bond was still there. That proves it was a partnership of the heart, not just the wallet.
So if the biblical model is this deep, risky, reciprocal partnership, this participation, why do we default to just donation?
Well, because donation is easier, let's be honest.
It is.
Writing a check requires very little of our soul. It doesn't require us to weep with those who weep. It doesn't require us to, smell the open sewage in a slum in Mumbai.
Right.
It doesn't require us to understand the cross-cultural conflict. We pay the money so we don't have to deal with the mess.
It's outsourcing. We're outsourcing the suffering.
But the sources argue that this finance-only mindset is leaving our missionaries spiritually malnourished. They're out there on the front lines, and they're starving for actual care. We need to recover two missing categories: shepherding and encouraging.
Okay, let's break those down. Let's start with shepherding. This seems to be aimed squarely at the leadership of the church, the elders.
The argument here is stark, and it might ruffle some feathers. It's this: the sending church, specifically its elders, bears the primary burden for shepherding the missionary.
Not the agency.
Not the mission agency, not the other supporting churches. The sending church.
I can hear a pastor listening to this right now saying, hang on a second. We send them with a big agency specifically so the agency can take care of them. They have a member care department. Why is this on me?
And it's a fair question. But think about the ecclesiology, the doctrine of the church.
Yeah.
Who commissioned this person? Who laid hands on them? Who evaluated their character before they ever left?
The home church?
The elders of the sending church know that missionary's spiritual baseline. They know their history. They know the husband struggles with anger when he gets stressed. They know the wife struggles with anxiety. An agency representative might see them once a year, but they don't have a covenantal responsibility to watch over their soul. Hebrews 13.17 says leaders will give an account for souls. It doesn't say agencies will give an account.
So this brings up a really common point of friction that the sources go into, this clash between the agency and the church. It sounds like a classic who's the boss problem.
It is. And agencies are wonderful tools. They handle logistics, visas, housing, team dynamics on the field, legal status in hostile countries. But because they're handling the daily grind, they naturally drift into shepherding.
And that's where the conflict starts.
Sometimes, yeah. The counsel an agency gives might imply a different set of priorities than the church would give.
Can you walk us through a hypothetical? What does this actually look like in the real world?
Sure. Let's imagine a missionary family is on the field. The husband is incredibly fruitful. He's planting churches. He's learning the language. But back at home, his marriage is falling apart. Or maybe one of his children is in full-blown rebellion. An agency, which is often focused on the strategy and the work, might say, look, we can't lose you from the field right now. The work is too vital. Maybe send the child to a boarding school. Maybe you just need a short break. They prioritize the mission.
And the church's response?
The sending church elders, if they're being biblical, should be looking at 1 Timothy 3. They care, first and foremost, about the man's holiness and his biblical qualification.
Right.
They might have to say, brother, if you cannot manage your own household, you are disqualified from ministry. You need to come home. The work can wait. Your soul and your family cannot.
Wow, that is a massive difference. One is saying stay and manage it, and the other is saying leave and fix it.
That's why the sources recommend a written agreement before the missionary ever leaves. a document that clarifies the roles. It's not about being legalistic, it's just about clarity.
So the church handles character.
The church's domain is character, doctrinal fidelity, personal holiness. The agency's domain is logistics, field strategy, and legal status.
But there is a caveat there, isn't there? The church can't just totally ignore the strategy.
Right. You cannot outsource your doctrinal integrity. If the agency starts pushing a ministry philosophy, say a church planting movement strategy that emphasizes speed over biblical fidelity, the elders have to step in.
Because the missionary is an extension of that church.
They're an extension of the church's theology. And if the theology on the field contradicts the theology in the pulpit back home, you have a broken partnership.
So, practically speaking, how does a church shepherd someone across an ocean? We have Zoom, we have WhatsApp. Is that really enough?
Well, technology helps. Regular contact has to mean more than just reading a generic newsletter. Elders should be using video calls to look the missionary in the eye. But the sources are adamant on this point. Technology is not enough.
Okay.
You need physical presence. They talk very specifically about the first-year visit.
Why the first year? Usually it seems like churches wait until the missionary has been there for a while, maybe 3 or 4 years, before they send someone out.
And that is a huge mistake. The first year is what some call the valley of death.
Wow.
It's the period of maximum culture shock. Think about it. You're a competent adult in America. You get on a plane, you land in a new country, and suddenly you're a toddler again. You can't speak, you can't read the signs, you don't know how to pay the electric bill, you don't know the social cues. It is incredibly humiliating and lonely.
You go from being a respected leader in your church to being like the village idiot.
That breeds depression.
Yeah.
It really does. So the sources argue that an elder needs to visit during that first year. Not to inspect the work, because it won't be any work yet,
Right.
but to refresh the spirit, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 16.
It's a pastoral visit, not an inspection.
It's a rescue mission. It's an elder showing up and saying, "We have not forgotten you, we love you." And there's a diagnostic benefit too. When an elder visits, he sees the reality. He smells the open sewers, he feels the oppressive heat, he sees the mold on the apartment walls.
He sees what you can't put in a newsletter.
Exactly. We call it sanitized reporting. Missionaries are often afraid, to be honest. They think, if I tell my supporters I'm miserable, they'll think I'm not spiritual enough and they'll cut my funding. So they just write, "Everything is great, praise the Lord."
Meanwhile, they're drowning.
But when an elder sits in their living room, eats their food, and watches them interact with their spouse, he can spot the tension. He can say, "Hey, you guys seem on edge, let's talk about it." That is shepherding. You cannot do that over email.
Now, there's a specific section in the source material about caring for missionary women. And I think this is a massive blind spot for a lot of all-male elder boards.
It is huge. The reality is, missionary wives often carry a heavier burden of cultural adaptation than their husbands. The husband has a job. He goes to the seminary or the job site. He has a defined role.
Right.
The wife is often left to navigate the market, deal with the landlord, manage the kids' schooling, and run a household in a place where simple tasks take 3 times as long.
And often in cultures where women are not treated with the same respect they might be used to.
Yes. And she is doing all of this without her mom, without her sisters, without her network of girlfriends. She is so isolated.
And if the only person from the church checking in on them is a male elder.
That is insufficient, and it's potentially dangerous. A male elder cannot adequately shepherd a missionary wife regarding her unique emotional and, physiological struggles. It's just not appropriate.
Yeah, so what's the solution?
The practical solution the sources offer is simple, but it is costly. When elders visit, they should bring their wives.
Okay, that doubles the cost of the trip right there. I can hear the budget committee groaning.
It's non-negotiable if you want to care for the whole family. The elder's wife can sit with the missionary wife, listen to her, pray with her, and offer counsel in a way a man simply cannot.
Mm-hmm.
The same goes for single female missionaries. They need that Titus 2 woman-to-woman encouragement. If you're not sending women to care for your women, you are leaving half your team completely vulnerable.
That is a really powerful point. We invest thousands of dollars to get them to the field. We should invest a little more to keep them sane.
It's just maintenance. You change the oil in your car. You have to invest in the souls of your workers.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. We've talked about the elder shepherding. Now let's talk about the congregation's mandate. Encouraging. Because, the average person in the pew can't just fly to Southeast Asia next week.
No, but the congregation's role is absolutely vital. The source material makes a great point about what it calls leadership trickle-down.
Okay.
If the elders don't talk about missions, the church will not care about missions. It has to appear in sermons. It has to be in the corporate prayer. It even affects the worship songs we choose.
So it can't just be the missionary of the week slide that flashes on the screen while everyone is still finding their seat and checking their phone.
It has to be woven into the very culture of the church. And beyond that, there are some really specific strategies. Let's talk about short-term ministry trips, or STMs. These often get a bad rap as, religious tourism.
Yeah, the Christian safari. You go, you take selfies with some poor kids, you paint a wall that didn't need painting, and you come back saying, I am so blessed.
Right. And often, the missionary on the field is left cleaning up the mess.
Yeah.
They have to host this team, drive them all over, translate for them. It's exhausting. But the sources reframe STMs entirely. The goal should not be the experience of the person who goes. It should be the refreshment of the long-term worker.
Okay, so what does a refresher STM look like?
It looks like servant logistics. It looks like bringing a suitcase that's full of cheddar cheese, peanut butter, and homeschooling, books, things they just can't get over there.
Practical stuff.
The practical stuff. It looks like a team coming in to run a vacation Bible school, not just to do ministry, but so the missionary parents can have a week off.
So the team watches the kids, and the missionary couple can actually go on a date.
Yes. Or the team fixes the leaky roof, so the missionary doesn't have to spend 3 weeks dealing with local contractors. It's practical service. It's basically saying, we are here to be your servants for a week. We are your pit crew.
That really shifts the focus from, look at me, I'm a missionary for a week, to, I am supporting the long-term work.
And psychologically, that is huge for the missionary. It reminds them, I am not out here alone. My family is with me.
Another strategy the sources mention is this idea of ownership by small groups. I love this idea because in a big church, it's just impossible to know everyone.
It's the problem of scale. If a church supports 50 missionaries, no single member can pray meaningfully for all 50 of them. It just becomes noise. The solution is decentralization.
So you assign them out.
You assign specific missionary families to specific Sunday school classes or home fellowship groups.
So the Tuesday night Bible study adopts the Smith family in Brazil.
Exactly. And suddenly, that small group knows the details. They know when the Smith kids have the flu. They know when the car breaks down. They're the ones sending the birthday cards. They're the ones organizing the care package. It creates high accountability and real intimacy.
It makes the partnership real. You're not supporting missions as a concept. You're supporting the Smiths.
Precisely. Now, we have to talk about the F word of missions.
Yes.
Furlough.
Furlough.
The term actually comes from a Dutch word for permission or leave of absence, but there is a massive myth we need to bust. Furlough is not a vacation.
I think most people in the pews assume it is. Oh, you're back in the States for 6 months. Must be nice to have a break. Enjoy the beach.
And the missionary just wants to scream. The reality is that furlough, or home assignment, as many call it now, is often frantic, homeless, and incredibly exhausting. They're traveling from church to church, giving the same presentation 50 times, meeting with donors to keep their funding up, trying to squeeze in medical checkups, dental work, renew visas.
It sounds like a complete nightmare. You have no home base.
You are living out of suitcases. Your kids are totally confused. So how does the congregation help? By solving the logistics. Housing and transportation are the two biggest stressors.
Okay.
Don't make your missionary rent a car at market rates for 6 months. That will bankrupt them. The church should provide a vehicle at low or no cost.
And for housing.
Provide a furnished apartment or a prophet's chamber. But here is a detail I absolutely love from the text. Stock the refrigerator before they arrive.
Oh, that's such a small thing, but that's huge.
It's huge. Imagine getting off a 20-hour flight with 3 jet-lagged kids. You unlock the door to some borrowed apartment. If the fridge is empty, you now have to drag everyone to the grocery store.
Yeah.
But if the fridge has milk, eggs, bread, fruit, and maybe a frozen lasagna, you can just collapse and rest. It signals, we were expecting you. We care about you.
And don't just say hi in the hallway when they visit the church on Sunday.
Right. Pick them up at the airport. Invite them to dinner. And not to pick their brain or ask them to perform, but just to be friends. Offer to babysit so the couple can go on a date. Remember, they've been living under a microscope. Give them some space to just be normal human beings.
This leads us right into what the sources call the hidden sorrows. This part of the reading really hit me. We talk about the sacrifice of the missionary, but we rarely talk about the sacrifice of the extended family that gets left behind.
This is the emotional cost that often goes unspoken. When a family moves overseas, they are leaving behind grandparents, siblings, and aging parents. The church has to step into that gap.
Let's talk about that left behind scenario, but with the children. The sources talk about third culture kids, or TCKs.
This is a specific crisis point. A child grows up on the mission field. They look American, but culturally they are Brazilian or Thai or Kenyan. And then they turn 18 and get sent back to the U.S. for college.
And their parents stay on the field.
Their parents remain on the field. So they land in a country that is supposed to be home, but they feel like aliens.
I've heard stories of TCKs walking into a grocery store cereal aisle and just having a panic attack because there are 50 kinds of cereal.
They don't know the slang. They don't know how to pump gas. They don't know how to open a bank account. And worst of all, they're alone.
So what is the church's role in that?
The sending church must become the surrogate family. You adopt them. Who helps them move into the dorm room? Who invites them over for Thanksgiving? Who disciples them when they are struggling with the culture shock of American hedonism? If the church ignores these kids, they often walk away from the faith because they feel abandoned by the very God their parents are serving.
That's a very sobering thought. We could be losing the next generation because we're not caring for them when they come back.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And then you flip the coin, the aging parents. This is one of the biggest sources of guilt for missionaries. They're serving God in a jungle somewhere while their mom or dad is deteriorating in a nursing home back in Ohio.
They feel like they're violating the fifth commandment.
They feel like they have abandoned them. Yes. So what does the church do? The church visits the parents as a proxy for the missionary.
Wow.
You visit the nursing home, you mow the lawn for the elderly mom, you sit with them in the hospital. The source quotes 3 John verses 6 and 7 about sending them on their journey in a manner worthy of God. Part of honoring the goer is caring for the vulnerabilities they left behind.
That's beautiful. It really gets to the heart of us being one body. If the hand is reaching out to the nations, the feet need to support the body back home.
Precisely. If you want your missionary to stay on the field long term, take care of their mom. It really can be that simple.
Okay, we've covered a lot of the heavy emotional stuff. Let's get into the structural solutions, because good intentions without some kind of structure usually fail. The sources give us 2 major frameworks. First, Tom Pennington's care team model.
This is a brilliant, scalable solution. Pennington suggests that for every missionary unit, so every family or single missionary, you form a dedicated care team.
What does that look like in practice?
It's a small group, maybe 4 to 8 people. They're selected by the missionary, but they're approved by the church leadership. And they have a dedicated leader who reports to the church's main missions leadership team.
So this isn't just a random group of friends, it's actually structured.
Yes. And their duties are threefold: advocacy, confidentiality, and logistics. First, advocacy. They represent the missionary to the wider church. They're the ones making sure the missionary doesn't get forgotten in the prayer bulletin. They are the squeaky wheel.
Okay. And the second one?
Confidentiality. This is so key. They provide a safe space for the missionary to share struggles that cannot go in a public newsletter.
That is huge. You can't put, I am depressed, or I am really struggling with anger at my team leader in a newsletter that goes out to 500 people.
Exactly. If you do that, you risk losing support, so you just stay silent. But the care team is the vault. They can hear the ugly truth and pray without gossiping.
And the third one is logistics.
Yes. They handle the birthday cards, the airport pickups, the housing search for furlough. Instead of the whole church trying to do everything and, well, failing, this small, dedicated team ensures the specific needs are met.
Yeah.
It distributes the load.
It's like a pit crew for a race car driver.
That is a perfect analogy. The driver gets all the glory, but the pit crew keeps the car running. Without the crew, the car crashes.
The second structural framework comes from Rodney Andersen. He lists what he calls the 4 Ps required for the pastors or leaders who are directing the missions efforts.
This is for the leadership side. If you're going to lead a church in missions, you need these 4 things. Number 1, passion. You need a real zeal for God's global glory. And this is fueled by theology and reading missionary biography. The leader isn't excited, the people will not be. You cannot outsource passion.
Number 2.
A pastor's heart. We've touched on this already. Viewing missionaries as flock members who need sanctification and comfort, not just as employees who are producing results.
And number 3 is my favorite, passport.
I love this one too. You cannot lead what you do not visit.
That is so simple.
It is, and it's essential. A missions pastor who never leaves the country is like a swimming coach who never gets in the water.
Mm.
You have to be willing to travel. You have to endure the jet lag, the strange food, the discomfort. It gives you credibility with the missionaries, and it gives you real insight into what they're actually facing. When you stand in the pulpit and say, "Pray for the Smiths," and you can describe the smell of their street, the congregation listens differently.
And the fourth P.
Plan. Strategic calendaring. You have to know when your missionaries are coming home, so you don't schedule the big missions Sunday for the week after they leave.
Right.
It means budgeting properly for reimbursements. It means intentionality. Excellence in administration honors God. Sloppiness discourages the missionary.
This has been a really detailed discussion. I mean, we've moved from the Philippian model of participation, that deep koinonia, all the way to the mandate for elders to shepherd the soul, the mandate for the congregation to encourage practically, the care for the hidden sorrows of the family, and finally, these structural ways to actually make it happen.
It really is a comprehensive overhaul of how we typically think about missions. It shifts the entire paradigm from paying a bill to sharing a life.
So as we wrap this up, let's try to summarize the key takeaway for the learner who's been listening today.
The core takeaway is that support equals participation. The Reformed doctrine of the communion of the saints is not just some theological abstraction. It means we are one body, geographically separated but spiritually united. If you are a sender, your role is not passive. It is active, it is relational, and it is sacrificial.
Which brings us right back to that question we posed at the very beginning.
Yes, reflect on the Philippians again. If a church supports a missionary financially, but completely ignores their physical, their emotional, and their spiritual needs, are they actually participating in the gospel? Or are they just paying a contractor to do a job they don't really want to think about?
That is a stinging question. Are we just paying a contractor?
Because true partnership costs more than money. It costs the self. It costs time. It costs emotional energy. It costs the comfort of bringing a stranger into your home.
Right.
It costs the awkwardly intimate conversations about sin and struggle. But that's the cost of the gospel.
And as the sources reminded us, Paul said that this kind of giving, this giving of self, is a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice pleasing to God, and that God will supply all our needs according to his riches in glory.
Amen. The giver is blessed in the giving. You're not losing when you give yourself away. You're gaining equity in the kingdom.
Thank you for walking us through all this. It has certainly challenged me to rethink how I engage with the missionaries my own church supports. I'm already thinking about who I need to email right now.
It's always a good thing to align our practice with Scripture. Let's not just be hearers of the word, but doers.
For our listeners, we hope this deep dive helps you move from being a donor to being a partner. Check your church's missionary list. Pick a name. Write a note. Send some cheddar cheese. Be a partner. Thanks for listening to Reformed Thinking. We'll see you next time.